Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into a story that's got everything: geopolitics, disinformation, and a deep dive into national memory. We're talking about the anatomy of a supposed foreign plot in India. Okay, so it all kicks off with this: a pretty cryptic, kind of off the cuff remark from India's prime minister right after he gets back from a major summit. I mean, just one sentence, and suddenly the internet is buzzing. People start thinking, wait, is he hinting that he just dodged something big? And that's all it took. The stage was set for a story that was about to explode. So fast forward to late October 2025, and this narrative just blows up online. And honestly, it reads more like something out of a spy novel than a news report. The claim at the heart of it all, it was absolutely shocking, incredibly dramatic. The CIA, they said, tried to assassinate India's prime minister. And get this, the story was packed with detail. We're talking about an alleged CIA plot happening on Chinese soil with the goal of completely toppling the Indian government. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just that the plot failed. No, the story claimed it was stopped cold by this incredible, almost unheard of team-up between India's RAW, Russia's FSB, and China's MSS. I mean, wow. You know, what really made this thing stick was how these super specific, dramatic clues were woven right into the story. It gave it this feeling of authenticity. This wasn't just some vague rumor floating around. No, it felt like a full-blown conspiracy, and it looked like it came with receipts. And this is where it gets really cinematic. I mean, first, you have this last-minute limo swap for a world leader. That hints that somebody knew something, right? Then you've got the tragic, mysterious death of a U.S. officer in a nearby country, and that's presented as the smoking gun. It's just a perfect storm of intrigue, like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. Okay, but when you take a step back from this amazing story and you start looking for, actual hard evidence, the whole picture just falls apart. It might have all the drama of a movie, but does it really hold up when you look closely? Let's dig in and find out. And here's the thing, there's just this massive gap between the viral story and the known facts. On one hand, you've got this wild, sensational plot being pushed by partisan outlets, but on the other hand, a total wall of silence. No official statements from any government. No reporting from big players like Reuters or the BBC. And while the death of that U.S. officer is a real tragedy, there is zero, I mean zero, public evidence that connects it to this whole supposed plot. Actually, if you break it down, the story ticks literally every single box for what we'd call disinformation. It's all based on anonymous sources you can't verify. It takes a couple of unrelated events and claims they're connected, and it taps right into those pre-existing biases people have about foreign powers. I mean, it is a textbook case. So that brings us to the biggest question here, right? If it's so clearly fake, why did it feel so real to so many people? If there's no proof and it looks like classic disinformation, how did it spread like wildfire? And why did people find it so compelling? Well, the answer is that this story, even though it's modern, is actually playing a very, very old tune. It's tapping into this deep well of historical anxiety and unsolved mysteries that are just baked into India's political memory. See, to really get why this modern spy story felt so believable, we have to go back in time. We need to look at some of India's biggest, most enduring mysteries. Let's start with the sudden and very mysterious death of Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri way back in 1966. So picture this. Shastri signs this historic peace treaty in the Soviet Union. It's a huge diplomatic win. Then, just hours later, he's found dead. The official story? A heart attack. But his family noticed strange blue patches on his body, and here's the really crucial part. No post-mortem was ever done. And to this day, key government files about his death are still classified. That kind of official secrecy has fueled suspicion of a foreign hand, often pointing to the CIA for more than 50 years. And this pattern of mystery and suspicion, it goes back even further. It goes all the way back to one of the most revered and, frankly, most enigmatic figures from India's entire freedom struggle, Subhash Chandra Bose. Okay, so the official story is that Bose died in a plane crash back in 1945. But the evidence for that, it's always been pretty shaky. No wreckage was ever independently checked out, no body was recovered, and get this, 3 separate government inquiries over 50 years couldn't even agree on what happened.
That total lack of closure has kept this powerful counter-narrative alive, the idea that he survived and just disappeared, maybe even ended up in the Soviet Union.
So when you put these stories side by side, the 2025 Modi plot, the death of Shastri, the disappearance of Bose, you start to see something really interesting. These aren't just isolated incidents. What you're really seeing is a pattern, a kind of recurring template for a mystery. And this is what's so fascinating. It really lays out the shared DNA of these stories. You always have a major event with a national leader happening on foreign soil. Right away, suspicion points to a powerful foreign agency, you guessed it, usually the CIA. And at the very core of each story is this one big unanswered question that just stops any real closure from ever happening. So here's the bottom line. That government secrecy, whether it's real or just perceived, it's the fuel for the fire. Things like classified files, a missing postmortem, ashes that have never been tested. All these gaps in the official story create a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, right? So conspiracy theories rush in to fill that space because, frankly, they offer an explanation that feels more complete, even if it's not proven.
Look, this isn't just about digging up old history. Understanding this pattern is absolutely crucial for making sense of the world we live in today. Because these kinds of stories, they're more powerful now than they have ever been.
So today's version of the foreign hand narrative thrives in what is basically a perfect storm. First, it taps into genuine anxieties people have about India's role in the world. Then, it gets amplified like crazy by a partisan media. And finally, it gets supercharged by social media algorithms that are basically built to push exactly this kind of emotional, sensational story to the top of your feed. At the end of the day, these stories are less about finding the truth and more about shaping perception. They've become these powerful weapons of soft power. They're used to steer public opinion, fire up nationalist feelings, and help navigate that really complex tightrope that India has to walk between the US, Russia, and China. They're tools, really, in a battle for what people believe.
And that really brings us to the core takeaway here. The real importance of this Modi plot story isn't about what actually happened. It's about what it tells us about the world we're all living in now. A world where information isn't just information anymore, it's a weapon, and it's the battlefield.
Which leaves us with this final kind of unsettling question. In the battle for hearts and minds, does what people perceive to be true now matter more than the truth itself? And this is why it's so important. Because when perception becomes more powerful than reality, it just eats away at trust. Trust in our institutions, in the media, and even in each other. It changes everything, from how countries deal with each other to how we as citizens participate in our own democracies. The real challenge for all of us is figuring out how to navigate this new battlefield, because that line between truth and fiction, it's something we all have a stake in defending.